The World's End is the third and final piece to what has been billed as the Cornetto trilogy here in the UK, and I believe overseas in the US and elsewhere it has been dubbed the Blood and Ice Cream trilogy, because I don't know how international cornettos are. They should be, because they're lovely, but that is besides the point. The spiritual and thematical series that is the Cornetto trilogy got its first lick back in 2004 when Edgar Wright, Nick Frost and Simon Pegg brought us the cult classic Shaun of the Dead, a wonderfully hysterical, satirical homage to all things undead. 2007 saw the trio re-team to take down Timothy, at least I'm not George Lazenby Dalton, and his crazy, sinister neighborhood watch community in a very small, rural area in the all-out, balls-out, exploding all over your face, guns in the air, screaming, ah, Hot Fuzz. Fast forward 5 years to current day, and you have The World's End, the fitting finish to the Cornetto trilogy, and it really is fitting because it is very similar in tone, in style, in presentation, in mood, to the other two films. So if you liked Shaun of the Dead and you liked Hot Fuzz, chances are you're gonna like this. I know that I certainly did. The premise for The World's End is pretty simple, straightforward, and it is delightfully British. Basically centers around the character of Gary King, played here by Simon Pegg, and it's worth noting that this is the most unlikable, horrible character that Simon Pegg has ever played, and for that reason it really kind of adds to his acting chops because it is really far removed from the kind of happy-go-lucky, slacker-type loser characters that we've been rooting for in the past. He's a different breed of character, and he is one that as soon as you see him and even hear him speak, you kind of take an instant dislike, and it only gets worse as the film goes on. Yet, strangely enough, this is juxtaposed with a bizarre sympathy slash empathy, depending on if you yourself are the Gary King of your youth. It's a very interesting character, and it's one that is stuck in the past, and that's where the film really centers around his sort of obsession with the past, and in particular the summer of 1990, when he and his four best friends finished school forever, four young men with their whole world in front of them, and to seal that sense of freedom and to embark on that liberty, they take on the ultimate boys' conquest of Newton Haven. It is called the Golden Mile. It is an epic pub crawl, 12 pubs, 12 pints, 5 young men. What could possibly go wrong? As it turns out, quite a few things, because as we quickly learn, they never do the pub crawl, they never finish the Golden Mile, and this is something that has become a thorn in Gary King's side for all of his life. In fact, he basically just blames all of the sort of mishaps and misfortunes of his life on the fact that they never did complete the Golden Mile, and he is in need of closure, so he deceptively gets the gang back together, now fully grown men with lives of their own who have matured and advanced in their years, unlike Gary. And here, there is a real sense of friction because nobody wants to do the Golden Mile except Gary, yet they feel obligated. And from here, you get a lot of character drama. What's funny about this film in particular in comparison to the previous two films, whereas Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead really kind of riffed and found its strong point and actually drew a lot of its strength from its sort of cultural core, whether it be zombies or whether it be action films. This film doesn't do that with the science fiction aspect because, if you know anything about the film or you've seen the trailer, you know that Newton Haven has been taken over by robots or aliens or alien robot hybrids or whatever you want to call them. It actually doesn't sort of gravitate around that. It kind of gravitates and delivers more from the human aspect, which is, I guess, kind of ironic considering it's a film about humanoid robots. Don't get me wrong, Edgar Wright does his action comedy thing incredibly well, as he always has done. It's fast-paced, it's witty, it's really well shot, and those bits are incredibly fun, and there is a lot of fun to be extracted from the whole humanoid robot sci-fi aspect. But the film doesn't kind of rotate around it. It doesn't orbit around that cultural point. It does really draw its strength from the characters and from the humanity in the film. And even though it is very fun and it's very funny, and believe me, it is very funny, I laughed through most of the film, I actually found myself more engrossed in the human drama, sort of the complexities between the characters, the backstories that they have with each other, the issues that they've had with each other over the years since that fateful night. all of the history that kind of fleshes itself out in conversations. It sounds really sad, but I would actually be quite willing to sit and be perfectly happy to just watch them go from pub to pub, talking, getting drunk, getting more aggravated, causing more problems with each other. This could easily have been a Mike Leigh film with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and Paddy Considine, who puts in a fantastic straight performance as seemingly only he can do, and Eddie Marsden, whose character basically is the complete antithesis of so many horrible characters he's done in the past. If you're familiar with Eddie Marsden's work, this might come as a surprise to you because he plays the ultimate wet towel in this film. He's so soft, and yet he is really kind of lovable, and you just want to hug him, and that cannot really be said for many of his characters. But I got real enjoyment and real pleasure from just kind of being a invisible party to their pub bullshit, essentially. And for me, that's where the strength of the film comes from. As I said, don't get me wrong, the sci-fi action aspects is really fun and enjoyable. It can be a little bit clunky and it can feel a little bit forced in places, and in fact it does kind of make the middle of the film lag a little bit, but it's enjoyable nonetheless. Combine that with all of the great characters, all of the great performances, the dialogue, just the general vibe of those guys hanging out with one another, and you have a really, really great film. It's really funny, it's really enjoyable, it's actually really sweet and really tender in moments as well. Plagued by a couple of faults, but in the end, a pretty bloody brilliant, fitting conclusion to a wonderful trilogy of films. I'm going to give it a 7.5.